Your phone and camera have probably taken hundreds or thousands of photos, some of which you probably meticulously processed by putting them into your computer, loading them up in Lightroom or Photoshop, and then going piece by piece and editing and processing everything. And then when that was done, it was turned out on social media for those coveted likes, or even worse, left to die on hard drives with poor labels, shoved in cardboard boxes, and put in the back of the closet. Some of us have broken this cycle by trying to create a more curated gallery online on our own websites. But let's face it, if you actually look at your photos and take a look at the moments and emotions you felt at that time, it probably isn't how you feel when you are going through your photos and loading them up online and viewing them online. I felt the exact same way when looking at my photos. It just didn't have enough physicality to it, which is why this just arrived. My first photography book. Now, it doesn't really matter what camera you use or what your photography style is or what type of photography you do, whether it's landscape photography, urban photography, portrait photography. There is a desire for those people who take pride in the photos that they take to be able to relive those emotions when viewing them. And that really gets lost online. We spend so much of our time on our phones, on our computer, on our day jobs, and a lot of that time is spent in front of a screen. So when we try to associate the same type of emotions we feel when out there in nature or out there on the street taking photos, it's really hard to relive that. And there is something to be said with having some form of physical, tangible object that you can use to then look and feel the emotions of your photos. And that's when I realized that I wanted something more than just being able to view the photo, because you get stuck in this cycle of taking photos, putting them online, taking photos, putting them online, taking photos, putting them online. It's like you're trying to regurgitate all the photos that you've taken and you're not actually able to enjoy the whole process. And what I found in photography especially is slowing down definitely really helps. And what better way to slow down than to print an expensive photography book. Now, before I started to actually print this photography book, I have printed in just sheets of paper before. Now, when I decided to actually start printing my photos, I knew that I didn't want to buy a printer because I didn't know how many photos I would be printing. I also know it's very expensive and photography itself is already pretty expensive, so I didn't want to invest or spend that much money on a printer right now. So I started looking online for different printing services, and I found one that actually works pretty well for me, and I'll list it down below. But the moment I saw my photos printed on professional paper, that's when I reignited my desire to continue to do photography, because I was able to actually relive the emotions much more carefully in there. No one else really had to appreciate the photo that was printed, but I could look at that photo and actually feel the emotions from it. But even now, I'm not really printing photos very regularly. Maybe I'll print once or twice a year because I like to batch them all up, and that way I can reduce the cost of printing the photos. But my current photo storage solution for physical photos isn't that good either. Usually it's a bit cumbersome when I want to try and take a look at my photos. What I didn't know at that time was how much serenity and peace looking at my photos actually brought me. Whenever I'm feeling down, whenever I'm feeling stressed, whenever I'm feeling demotivated for photography, all I have to do is go back and take a look at those photos, immerse myself in them. I don't even have to look at them for a long time. Just the act of looking at and going through those same photos that I've probably gone through hundreds of times already, that really helps calm me down and reignites my desire to go out and take more photos and get more immersed in nature. So I knew that I wanted a better way to take a look at my photos, and what better way than a photography book? But the problem with photography books are they're also pretty expensive. So when saal-digital sent me a coupon to print my own photography book, I'm like, okay, now a good time as any. I have a decent number of photos that I really want to print out. Why not just go ahead and create a book out of them so I can pull this book out anytime I want and even be able to share it more easily with the rest of my friends and family. With the process of actually making it, I had to pick out the different photos that I really wanted to print and then figure out how to better tell a story and what story I wanted to actually tell. The one thought that I had was to just take local Pennsylvania photos, because I'd never seen a Pennsylvania photography book, especially one that had a lot of attention drawn to it. So I really wanted to create something like that for myself at least, and take the photos that I've taken of my local landscape and present that a lot better than I'd ever seen it before. But when I started getting into it, I didn't like the combination of photos that I was bringing. And talking to my wife, she asked me why I even needed to bother with doing a Pennsylvania or local landscape version. Why not just do the photos that you actually want to do? I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. So I took all the photos that I really enjoyed and ones that I hadn't already printed out and decided to collect them. Now, not all of them could make it onto this because this is also pretty expensive. Even with the coupon, I still had to pay $100. And I only have a certain number of pages that I could print with. So I had to pick a little bit more selectively. Once I picked several photos, I had to narrow that down even more, deciding on the story that I wanted to tell, which was going through the different seasons from when I first started photography till now, and using that to kind of collect different colors and themes together so that it would have a better story. But when I got this photography book, I was so excited to take a look at all the other photos, to be able to relive those emotions that I felt with all the other printed photos I've taken. But I was pretty disappointed. They were not nearly the same quality as the type of photos I'm used to printing. And this is a lot smaller than the type of photos that I'm used to printing. And I didn't know what had happened. My first thought was that maybe the printing service just wasn't as good as the other one. Taking a look at these photos from a little bit further away helps a little bit, but the closer and closer I get, the quality starts to really showcase itself. And that's one thing to keep in mind when you are taking photos and printing them, that you have to take into account how closely you're going to be viewing these photos. And for me, I really like to getting very close. Unless I'm planning to actually hang the photo, I want to be able to engage pretty closely with these photos. When you have a low quality print, it just doesn't work. The whites weren't as bright as I wanted, the black seemed to be a lot crushed, and there just seems to be a little bit more noise and pixelation. I know that camera matters a lot. Obviously, if I took photos with my phone, I wouldn't be able to print them as large because of the number of megapixels that my phone has. But my Sony camera does have a 24 megapixel crop sensor, which means I should be able to print at least 10 by 12 or 11 by 17, which is usually what I go for, without really losing quality. And this is around the same size. Some of the photos did turn out pretty well. The ones with a lot of leaves and a lot of color tend to work better because I guess it just hides the pixelation a lot more, but the ones with a lot of negative space showcase the poor quality of the photos. And that's why I regret it, because I obviously couldn't really throw this book away and make a new one. It cost money and it was something that was still valuable, and I don't want to waste it. I really do enjoy the photos and they're pleasant to look at. It's just that they didn't meet the expectations that I had. So even then, I still enjoy taking a look at these photos, but I've learned a couple of lessons. One is to ensure that your monitor is color calibrated when you're building this portfolio or this book. I usually use my MacBook screen, even though it's smaller than my external monitor. It does have good color calibration already built in, and the photos that I've printed have been reasonable with it. I haven't really had any big issues with that, and I don't think I really see a lot of color issues particularly with this. Now, the other big issue though is brightness, and that's something that you really have to take into account, because when you are looking at your photos on a screen, it is backlit because of the screen. When you print them out, they won't really have that brightness to them. Depending on the type of paper you go for, obviously, matte paper versus glossy paper might be a little bit different, but I do think I need to up my exposure a little bit when I am printing the photos. And finally, the size of the photo that you export your images before you give them to the printing service really matters, because there are different export settings and there are different formats in which you can actually export your photos that will then impact how much compression happens from your raw files to the final photo that you will send to the service. And so when I reached out to saal-digital, and this is the redeeming factor that I think makes this company so great. The quality of the book is still pretty good, but when I asked them about this, not only did they reply to my comments and give me advice on how to better print my photos, some of which I'm sharing with you, but they also gave me a coupon to create a new photo book for the whole amount, and I'll be able to recreate some of these images and also add more images to it. So really good job in customer service there. They really stand behind their product. And the next time, taking their advice into account, I can create an even more vibrant photo book. But also, I hope that they can update their software to have a better user interaction and user experience while the user is building their photos, so that they're notified much more easily. Most printing services, for example, will tell you how good of a quality your photo is when it's printing. But for example, on saal-digital, you don't really get the legend of the different range of quality of the photo, so you don't really get alarmed that easily if a photo is low quality, good quality, very good, or if there even is an excellent, for example. And building that into the platform where you assemble your book would be a lot better, and ensuring that you have the best quality product from the very beginning, and making sure that the user is well aware of what they need to do and how their final product would work. I think it would be great if photo service companies were able to simulate a look of a book online with the screen, so that we can get a better idea of how our final product will look like. So I think for people who aren't really printing their photos on a regular basis, people who don't really have a lot of knowledge, printing photos is a lot of effort and a lot of money. And so we can't really do this very often. So it'd be great if these services had that to offer. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what saal-digital will do next with their software. Yeah, I guess in the end, it did work out. I really love this book, and I really love this acrylic cover as well. I didn't think if it would be worth it to pay for that, but this is my favorite photo I've ever taken, and I'm really glad I put it front and center. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you found something useful out of my experience of making my first photo book. And if you have any comments about my experience, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.